Yo, what is up everybody? It is Bumfris, back with another episode of Entitled Parents. This one is an absolute banger and I know you're gonna love this one. Before this video starts, do me a massive favor and leave a like on the video. If you leave a like, you will earn 18,721 Bumfris points and they are not something to miss. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, then sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. So this happened in October 2019, when we flew from Kolkata to Phuket via a stopover in Singapore. And this is the cast. The entitled mum is a 70-year-old headache. The entitled dad is a 40-year-old migraine daughter of entitled mum. Anita is the poor stewardess, and me is obviously me. M is my mother, and S is sister. Given that my own mother does not eat pork or beef, we are Indians, I had to book a special diabetic seafood meal for my mother on both sectors. Singapore Airlines was kind enough to accommodate this for us and also allocated us our seats. This was done 2 months in advance because I didn't want to be a nuisance to the hardworking crew. Now, we board the plane and we have 3 seats on the left side. The A350 was in a 333 configuration, and in the aisle sat the entitled mum and the entitled dad. Takeoff went smooth and I start chilling with my whiskey in hand while my mother and sister go to sleep. We are awoken about 15 minutes later because my mother's meal had arrived. The entitled mum noticed this and started to point towards us, and then ding! The entitled dad had called the attendant and demanded to know why my mother got her meal first. Anita is the one to respond and tells her about our pre-booking meals for my diabetic mother. Suddenly, the entitled mum starts demanding her meal. Her demanding was more amplified through the entitled dad. This escalates until the head stewardess comes from the business section and tells her that she won't be getting anything until the cart reaches our section. No more than 5 minutes had passed, and again ding, the entitled dad suddenly started angrily demanding food again because apparently her suddenly diabetic entitled mum is feeling fainty from the lack of food. The entitled dad now started attracting the attention of those around them, and the head stewardess finally caves in and asks them to both be allocated diabetic meals. 15 minutes later, we get our meals and drinks, where my sister asked for a wine and I asked for a Singapore sling. Then yet again, ding. Anita turns around and entitled mum and entitled dad demand to know why they weren't served any drinks. Anita says, "I'm sorry ma'am, just let me tell you what is available." She tells them that they have black coffee and green tea. The entitled dad is not satisfied and demands to know why she isn't offered anything else when the cart is stocked with alcohol and juice and soft drinks. Then came the words that almost made me spit out my drink in laughter. Anita smiles at her and goes, "Ma'am, we are extremely sorry, but diabetic allocated passengers are only offered black coffee and tea. Our menu is strictly curated by health professionals and chefs, and this is the recommendation as you can see from this lady over there," and points to my mum, who by the way gleefully sipped away her green tea while watching Jumanji. The entitled dad and entitled mum are visibly seething in anger from the defeat, and while exiting the plane, looked at the head stewardess and go, "We will complain on your website. Very poor service," while she smiles back and goes, "I'm so sorry to hear that. Hope you had a nice flight." My sister and I had to hold back behind them a bit because that reply had us wheezing. I almost wish I could say that every single entitled parent's story would have an ending like this, because at least then, every single entitled parent would have just that little bit of revenge or that little bit of payback on them that they deserve, but unfortunately, it just doesn't go this way all the time. On the bright side though, I am glad to be able to bring you a story where the entitled parents got exactly what they deserve, and it is just that. A little bit of payback for being some of the most entitled people on the planet, and well, here it is. My wife and I kept my crazy mum at a distance for a good reason. When I was 30 and she was 28, we bought our first house. As a 30th birthday gift to me, my mum surprised me by paying off my remaining student loan, which was $3,000. This was nice because our house was a complete rehab project and we needed every extra penny that we could muster. 2 years later, my wife is now turning 30. We both agreed that we would visit family this year for her birthday. As soon as my mum found out that we were coming, she demanded that we return her $3,000 upon arrival or not bother showing up. Apparently, she's been having bad luck in the market, more like wasting tens upon tens of thousands of dollars on cosmetic surgery, and needs her money back. Needless to say, we've scrubbed our plans to see family for her birthday. Now we joke, don't invite Car Freak's mum to your birthday because she thinks she's entitled to thousands of dollars from the birthday boy or girl. She wonders why she hasn't seen us in over 2 years. She wonders why she hasn't and most likely never will see our new home. There really is little wonder. You know, I genuinely think that with some of these people, they just have absolutely no social awareness whatsoever. Regardless of why this lady had no money, whether she really was in trouble or whether she was spending it all on plastic surgery, it really doesn't matter. I just can't imagine giving somebody a gift and then 2 whole years later, demanding that they give it back for literally no reason whatsoever. I mean, it sounds like a pretty crappy thing for just your average person to do, but for a mother to do it to her son, that's gotta be one of the lowest things that I can think of. This story took place just a couple of years ago, and I was told about this by my husband and our friend Bella. I will do my best to tell the story as I was told it. It was my birthday and I was turning 35, so not a kid, but family still wanted to have a get together for me. We had just recently moved back to the state and I hadn't been around for a birthday for about 15 years. It wasn't anything big, I think it was actually grilling salmon and veggies, and then we were going to have cake. I guess what happened was my mum, who we're going to call the entitled mum, called my husband and said, "Hey, pick up the cake and I will pay you for it." My husband told me about this and he had already planned on getting me a cake. It had been ordered and picked up before the entitled mum had even called. My entitled mum lived a couple of hours from us and called on her way over. My husband, I guess, told her that he already had a cake taken care of and not to worry about it. It isn't a good idea to take anything from my entitled mum as she likes to get to run things. My entitled mum shows up and starts talking about all the work that we still have to do on the house. I'm in and out of the conversation because I'm making food and I'm not in the mood to hear how all of the work that we've already done isn't enough yet. But then, while I'm outside, my entitled mum goes into the kitchen where my husband, Bella and our kids are there, prepping the cake and putting candles on it and some little trinkets. Anyways, my entitled mum walks over and slides between all of them and sticks her fingers in the edge of the cake. My husband and Bella said that they looked at each other shocked, but it didn't stop there. My entitled mum grabbed the knife that they had set by the cake for serving after I had seen the cake, but my entitled mum cut a big chunk out of the corner. When my husband said to my entitled mum that I hadn't even seen the cake yet, she just looked at him with daggers and said, "So?" My husband and Bella tried to hide the corner from me, and honestly, it was kind of funny. I asked afterwards what had happened, and I kind of figured that my entitled mum had something to do with it. Like, I thought she would have told one of my kids that they could have a piece early, but I was a little shocked to find out that she just dove into my cake. After all, this was the woman who taught me my manners. This is truly a do as I say, not as I do situation. What I don't get is just why anyone would do this. Like, is it not just common sense that you don't cut into somebody else's birthday cake until they've either seen it or until happy birthday's been sung, or just like having some kind of general courtesy for the person whose birthday it actually is? I don't know. Like, really, I just genuinely don't know, but I feel like a common theme amongst entitled parents is the fact that common sense and manners just don't seem to exist for them. They'll expect everyone else to have manners and everyone else to use common sense, but as soon as it comes to them having either of those things, it just completely flies out the window. Usually entitled parent stories are about some random person that they see in the street, but I really feel sorry for this one because she has to live with this person day in and day out. So I worked with this guy who was about 5 years older than me. I am 20 at the time, so he'd have been about 25. He still lived at home with his parents because his mum wasn't ready to let him go. He had a 9 PM curfew and always had to have permission to go over to a friend's house. I was nice to him because, quite frankly, I felt bad for him, and I guess in his mind, that meant we were friends, so I got to know him slightly better than you would a standard co-worker. He did have a learning disability, so the entitled mum had some concerns about me, but he wasn't slow or anything like that. He was a fully capable adult. The first time I met his mum, I knew that there was no hope for this guy. She constantly controlled his every move. He couldn't eat certain foods because they'd give you gas, or "I don't think you'd like that anyway," and he wasn't allowed to do anything without her permission. He had his license, but she drove him to and from work. She even ended up getting a job in the same building through a different department, and I suspect that it had nothing to do with carpooling to save gas money. Last I heard, he finally was able to get his own apartment, but I still see them around town together. I never see him on his own. She'll even go with him to the bathroom at the county fair. I'm 21 now, so he's gotta be around 26. He still works here, and his mum is still controlling. The entitled mum has ruined that guy, and he's gonna be so screwed if she kicks him out and leaves him behind. You know, this one really sucks for both of them because I feel like she's probably really nurtured and babied him because he does have a learning disability, but at the same time, if he's a fully capable adult and he can do things on his own, there's just no need to continue to helicopter parent him. I could be entirely wrong, but I can almost bet that all this dude wants to do is go out, have a little bit of independence and freedom, and live his life the way that he wants to. Like I said, I could be entirely wrong, but I know if I was in that situation, that would be just what I'd want to do. I did not want to run into him. I had managed to avoid my stepbrother and his wife for about a year, but I did yesterday afternoon. I was at my dad's place to drop off a few things that he had needed. That's when my stepbrother and his wife walked in. They had recently announced that they're having another baby. I had sent them a text congratulating them, but apparently that wasn't enough, and they had whined to my dad about how I wasn't enthusiastic enough. When I saw them yesterday, our interaction began cordially enough. I asked how my sister-in-law was doing, etc. Then, my dad asked me to stay for dinner. I declined as I had to take my dog to the vet as he has a temperature. I mentioned that I'd taken the day off from work to deliver my dad's things and to take care of my dog. My brother scoffed at this and commented that it's dumb to spend money on an animal and that they can self-heal, and in this day and age, it's just wasteful to keep pets because there's such scarcity in this world. Now, I know that him and my sister-in-law are planning to have 4 kids because they've mentioned it many times, but I've never commented on it. So I failed to understand why he had the right to comment negatively on me having and caring for pets. Something which, by the way, doesn't have nearly as much environmental impact as having multiple biological children. So, I snapped back and said, well, if you're so worried about scarcity of resources, why the hell are you creating another human being? Why would you add to the world's overpopulation? Take a long hard look at your own actions before commenting on what I'm doing with my life. And then, I stormed out. Apparently I'm the villain of this story because my sister-in-law cried her eyes out after I left. And my phone has been bombarded with messages from my dad, my stepbrother, and even my sister-in-law's sister, who I simply told to go F herself, in so many words. I've decided to ignore the messages from my dad and stepbrother. I don't think I'll be speaking to my stepbrother and sister-in-law for a very long time, possibly for years. I'll stay in touch with my dad, but only to make sure he's okay. I know I said this before, but the stories that involve entitled parents that are actually family members of yours really get to me. And I really don't think it's for any particular reason. I think probably just the fact that it is so difficult to be able to separate yourself from family, even at the best of times. But when things like this go down, it just creates such a rift within the family, and it's all because one person decides to put themselves on a pedestal for literally no reason. You decide that you want to have kids, that's absolutely fine. You decide that you just want to have pets, that's absolutely fine as well. I literally could not care either way, and I just wish that there were more people that lived their life not worrying about what other people did. So, my brother and his psycho wife asked me the other day to babysit their children, and I said no. I work a 9-to-5 job and do extracurricular stuff afterwards that's more important. When I said this, his psycho wife said, "You are going to babysit your nephew and nieces because we're on our way to your place right now and you're just gonna have to effing deal with it." Which I then replied, "Go ahead and try," and promptly got in my car and left my place of residence and did not come back until later. I already had things to do. The next morning, my neighbor next door said that a woman was at my door with her baby and 2 little girls for an hour and a half knocking on the doors and windows just trying to get in. When I heard this, I called my brother and was absolutely livid and told him not to let his wife do that kind of thing again. It turns out they just wanted me to watch their kids so they could go bar hopping until 2 AM and not have me return their children until 10 AM. I've told him and my family that I'm child free. Everyone seems to leave me alone about it, except for this woman. She has legit called me irresponsible and a man-child for not wanting to have kids when I first told my family about it. Oh boy, I really thought this one might have been a bit of a cheeky one to throw in after that last one where I went on a rant about people leaving each other alone for the decisions that they choose to make, but I guess in the entitled parent world, things just don't go that way. You know, I really have a way to get to myself, and more than anything, reading entitled parent stories is probably the best way to do just that. Reading just how bad people can be day in and day out really does not help restore my faith in humanity whatsoever. Maybe it's time that we mix things up and do a little bit of choosing beggars tomorrow. Hint hint. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I tried to get quite a few stories into this episode today. I think there were 6 or 7. I tried to get through them a little bit quicker just so that you guys got a few extra stories to make up for a little bit of my absence. I know that there's nothing that I can really do to make up for the fact that I only make videos every so often, but I would like to thank every single one of you guys that do stick around. It actually means so much to me, and I cannot thank you enough for your support. Like I said at the very end of that last clip, there will be an episode of Choosing Beggars tomorrow. I actually have already started making the video, so I'm going to commit to this 100%. If there is another subreddit that you would like to see, please let me know. I could probably do like a pro revenge or something along those lines, but I do love choosing beggars as well, and I actually get quite a big kick out of it, so I think that's something that I'll enjoy as much as you guys will. But otherwise, I do just about want to wrap things up there. I don't want to drag things out all that much for this outro, as I tend to do from time to time. So again, I will just say thank you so much, every single person, for watching this video. I appreciate you all more than you know. Don't forget to look out for tomorrow's video. It should be up at pretty much exactly the same time that today's video goes out, just tomorrow. And that will be it. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.